Hello again, this is David Lucas, and I'm very happy to be with you today to talk about the theme of Module 7 in our class, our course on communication with people with disabilities. In this module, we're going to be talking about the need for advocacy and inclusion, and especially we're thinking in terms of people with disabilities. And I'm hoping that as you've moved through these modules and this course, you've been able to think about your responsibility, and maybe you want to become an advocate. But if you'll look at the literature, often people with disabilities have few or no advocates around them, and they end up having to advocate for themselves. And I've got an interesting little written piece here I just want to summarize for you. Now, we've had the 10 commandments of people communicating with people with disabilities. Well, here are 10 steps of better self-advocacy. Now think about this in terms of people with disabilities. Think about this as you possibly wanting to become an advocate for people with disabilities. The first step in the 10 steps of better self-advocacy for people with disabilities is to accept your own disability. That means you have to have good intrapersonal communication. You've got to talk to yourself and bring yourself to the moment that you can say, I have this disability. This is my disability. Whether it would be a psychological disability, whether it would be some sort of physical disability, the person with disability must accept this as something that's a part of their lives. Then, the second step or commandment listed here in the better steps to self-advocacy is to admit your disability to others. And you've noticed that in a lot of our video that we've played and various aspects that we've looked at, people with disabilities have had to say, well, this is my disability, but I'm not letting this keep me from living a good quality-filled life. Third, especially if a person has a disability that affects the way they learn, they must understand how to use their learning style to their benefit. Understand the way you learn best. The fourth step is to realize how other issues may interfere with your self-advocacy. For example, if you can't speak, if you don't hear well or can't hear, if the person has these kinds of disabilities, or possibly are you too shy or too afraid to ask for help? Are you too embarrassed or frustrated? Some folk with disabilities become so frustrated because they can't do what they need to do to find the help that they need. Fifth, and I think this applies to all of us, is to know what we need. Sometimes I get at a point in my life I'm challenged that I don't know what I need, and it especially must be difficult with anyone or a person with a disability. So if you decide to advocate for them, give some time for them to figure out what it is they need. 7 is to know your rights and responsibilities. And as I said in the preliminary module, this changes from state to state. Some states have greater laws about people with disabilities and for people with disabilities than others. But the federal government has laws also that we have to not only keep but understand and know. And so there's a little research that's involved here to understand your rights and your responsibilities as a person with disability, or if you're working with a person with a disability. Here I think is an important one. Number 8 is open yourself up to compromise. I think this is important for every person, but especially people with disabilities. As we move through the political system, as we move through the political rhetoric, as we move through policies and procedures, or whether we're at a university or college, whatever the circumstances, we must be ready to compromise a little bit. Maybe not your values or things that are very important to you, but to be able to compromise. If this won't work, well, we'll try this, and at least we're making some progress. So a person has to open themselves up at least to consider compromise. Number 9 is to know where to go for support. You have to identify the places that you can get the help that you need. And number 10, plan for the future. And I think that's probably why you took this class, not only to get a degree and to be involved in education, but also because you realize that everything's changing in our country, and rightly so. And people with disabilities and other folk who are living lives with us in a diverse nature, things are changing in our culture, and we need to be ahead of the curve, if you will, and be able to understand the changes that are coming. And we need to think about the future in many ways. So as you move into this module and thinking about advocacy, think about these 10 steps towards self-advocacy and make this module a successful one for you and for your future.